Sitting here with Coach Chris Roof before our combine tomorrow morning, all sports combine. We're expecting about 15 athletes from anything from track and field to acrobatics and tumbling, a really cool, innovative sport that Baylor specifically has, and these athletes can transfer to all different types of sports. So we'll just be diving in a little bit around the holistic athletic journey and what kind of goes into training these athletes and the opportunities that can come from it. So Chris, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit before about, your entry into strength and conditioning and kind of the state of it now. Would love to hear your take. We talk and think a lot about at game time, hyper-specialization, all sports, the ability for athletes to play different sports. And we were just getting into this before we started, but talk to me a little bit about what you've seen over the last 15, 20 years in terms of this trend of hyper-specialization.
Yeah, it's definitely grown a lot. And when I started in my career, you certainly saw a lot more athletes that were multi-sport in general coming up. They maybe even had more formal PE programs that they went through elementary and in junior high and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that has shifted a lot as money has become a bigger thing in sports, and now we have all these leagues and things that they're sports like soccer, baseball, softball, volleyball, basketball. They're going year round competing, and the reality is that a lot of these young people that are doing that, they're not able to take time and make time to develop their body physically and structurally, and probably mentally too. There's something to be said for being able to play multiple sports, and one of those sports you might not be the best person at. So you learn how to handle defeat and adversity from that. But they're not able to take time to develop their strength, power capabilities, mobility, and it's led to a less resilient athlete physically because, the only way to not get hurt playing a sport is to not play the sport. And so we've gone completely the opposite direction where they're playing the sport all the time, so they have all these increased exposures. So that's going to increase risk in and of itself. But then we're taking away opportunities to develop physically and better protect their bodies from the stresses of those sports. And so it becomes a kind of a snowball. And we certainly see athletes that are having injury issues and things in high school that you didn't used to see in the past. And we end up having here to help manage those, and sometimes they're in the middle of a rehab process when they get here, and we're having to work with the medical staff to help bring them back into sport competition, or you're having to adjust training to work around the other injury considerations they have from their time coming up. So it's certainly an issue. I've been chatting with a former staff member of ours over the last couple of days about this in women's soccer, and we know what the answer is, but nobody wants to do it because
what is that answer?
It's not play so much when they're young.
Sure.
We need to have, and I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you have limits put in place, but it's damaging long term to what their potential athletic career could be.
Is it the playing itself, just the over practicing over games, or is it even down to the training specific regimen?
Probably a little bit of everything, but certainly depending on the sport. But they're playing a lot of games all year long. Practices as well, so they're getting these repetitive sport-specific actions over and over and over and over again without having the requisite tendon strength or mobility or muscle strength to withstand those forces and be able to recover, because they're growing individuals at the time too. So you talk about a teenage athlete that's going through puberty and their body is new every day, and so throwing all these intensive stressors at them all the time doesn't allow for very robust development. Whereas if you go, back in my day when you're out playing pickup ball or getting together with a bunch of guys to play baseball, jumping out of a tree, climbing up a tree, all those types of things, just tumbling around and everything. And we've lost a lot of that today where there's a lot less, there's a more narrow skill development with those athletes too. So there's things that if you're a baseball player and you play football also, there's things that you pick up on from tracking the ball or how you need to move that you can carry over and can help you in the sport of football and vice versa. Basketball, football, you're limiting the athlete's toolbox from a skill set standpoint and a decision-making standpoint, identifying what's going on in front of them and being able to make a split-second decision. You're cutting their tools down to be able to do that, and I think we're doing a disservice to our kids and our country by really pushing this single sport model so
Well, and I'm
strongly.
curious of how that even changes your day to day. But even before that, I think maybe zoom out at a high level, and even how would you define, or how do you think about, like, what do you do for the athlete, just at a high level? And then I want to get into how you might have to change your tactics because of some of these more, trends.
Yeah, so number one, and it's on the wall back there, but our number one job is to prepare champions for life. So we realize that we have these student athletes here maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe less than that now. With the transfer portal, you might only have somebody for a year or a semester. But the reality is our job is to take an athlete, if we're going to use a 4-year athlete as an example, their parents are handing them off to us, or their parents, guardians, whoever their family member is that's taking care of them, is handing them off to us and expecting us to carry on the traits and character qualities and everything and life lessons that they're working to instill in their son or daughter. And it's our job to carry those through and help continue to build those so that when they walk out of here at age 22 or 23, they're able to go step out in the real world and be a high functioning member of society. If they go to the workforce, be a great professional. If they're going on to grad school, be prepared for that. But to be a great member in their community, be a great husband, mother, spouse, whatever it may be that's waiting for them on the end, and then hopefully living a healthy life for 80 plus years after they're done. And if we do a good job of training them in the right way, we can help teach some of those habits that they can use after they're done here and maintain health and be able to chase our grandkids around when they're in their 60s and not have to be hobbled up everywhere. And so that's the number one thing of why we do what we do here, and the most important thing that we do. The training part's a lot easier than that. I think the soft skills development and social skills development, that's the tough piece. I think you recognize that as an athlete.
Sure.
It's when you bring in 30, 40, depending on the size of the team, 100 people in from different places and different cultures and different backgrounds and try to form one cohesive unit. It's tough. It takes a lot of work, but the physical work is a little bit easier to plan out. So the things that we have to think about is, are we doing a good job of evaluating them when they come in physically? So if that's something that's an actual test-specific thing that's got actual metrics and objective numbers, or it can be something that's qualitative, as simple as just watching them walk, watching them move through a warm-up. What are things that you notice? Are they favoring one side or the other? Are they turning one foot out more than the other? Okay, does that give us some insight into things that may be going on somewhere in their body that we need to have a conversation about? We may not have a complete injury history on some of them when they come in, so we may be uncovering those things as they get here, and then it's developing a program along with the other people that are involved in our care team with these student athletes, so the coaching staff, nutrition, the medical staff, mental health, and seeing what we need to do to help. All right, if their physical status right now is a C, how can we get them to a B, and how can we get them to a position where they have a lower risk for injury? We can't prevent injuries, but we can help reduce the risk of it. And that's identifying those things that may be going on. And so we'll see, you'll see in sports that like soccer, volleyball, women's basketball, it's more prevalent on the female side, but you will see people that have had ACL injuries by the time they get here, sometimes multiple ACL injuries. And so that takes a really dedicated effort from the performance staff, the medical staff, and the coaching staff to be on the same page. Like, how can we get this individual to a place where they can compete at a high level and do it safely and not rush the process to where, you step over $1 trying to pick up a penny type of deal.
Well, and that's I mean, a couple interesting things. I mean, the dynamic on the development side, it sounds like there's almost three planes where you're trying to evaluate, how much is this the potential just baseline of the athlete coming in, and then figuring out, what are the either injury history or deficiencies that the athlete might have, and then through it, obviously, understanding what this athlete is really good at, I guess would be a simple way to put it, but what they're proficient at. How do you think about just that holistic balance? And then I guess what's most common to see as a new student athlete enters the program?
First thing, I think the performance staff needs to do a good job of communicating with the coaching staff and understanding what it is that the coaching staff is looking for in an athlete, or what they see in a particular athlete, and so they know from the sports standpoint what their strengths and weaknesses are. That way they can start thinking about how do we need to train this individual to help them fit whatever it is that the needs of that sport, based on how they play, style of play, what their utility is as an athlete, where they fit in the system, and everything like that. And then understanding the sport well, so that we know what are the injury risks for the sport that are already there, or what are things that we can do to help minimize those as best as possible, and going from there. And then just being in continuous conversation with everybody involved, and making sure the athlete understands those things as well too, because sometimes they'll come in as freshmen and not really, maybe they're really great physically, they have really good physical skill set, but they don't understand the tactics of the sport as well as they need to. And so maybe that's their maturation process there, is getting better on the tactical side of things, or technical side of things, but maybe they have great power output and speed and everything like that, which is probably what you want. It's probably a little bit easier to teach.
And
some of that.
is that a little bit of the trade-off you alluded, like on the hyper-specialization, where they might be a little bit more polished on the tactical or skill side, but it turns out they actually are maybe quite deficient in terms of performance?
100%. Yeah. You would hope after playing that many games and being in the sport that long, that they would have a pretty good understanding of tactics and technical aspects of the sport, and then so now it's our job to help bridge that gap and bring the physical component up, and sometimes that can be challenging too, because you have such a limited timeline that you're able to do that. You may be, anymore they have a fall season and they have a spring season on top of it, and they're gone for parts of the year, so you don't see them in a full, like what you would consider like what you had in football as a true off-season training period, where you did 8 weeks of basically just basic strength, speed, power, conditioning training, did a little bit of football stuff on the side, where now it's flipped a little bit more, where it's more half and half, where they might be doing, even in the off-season, half of their hours, countable hours, are spent with their sport coach doing skill development work, and then the other half is with the performance staff. So they may only be getting 4 hours of training in that regard. So we have to think about how we can best manage that and get done what we need to get done in a shorter window of time, or smaller window of time.
Yeah. It's interesting on the hyper specialization. It's like, we see all of it converging on the youth side. Usually it was you played all these sports, you came in and you had these opportunities, but, and what we're trying to perpetuate is this off ramp where, based off of your athletic ability, what you've built, maybe it was hyper specializing, maybe it was doing a couple things, but you actually have set yourself up to go on to other potential careers in sports. How do you just think about whether it's within a sport? I transitioned from defensive line to center because I looked and I moved in a way that could project really well. How are you thinking, or the communication in terms of almost, following the breadcrumbs of, hey, we may have thought this way about an athlete, but they get on the campus, they get into our program, and maybe there's a different path, again, whether it's positionally or any examples that you've seen, even athletes who've gone on to go do things that, may have been outside of just the cookie cutter, how they were brought in.
Yeah, I think in talks with the coaching staff helps identify where an athlete might need to fall within, if say they're a baseball player coming in to play baseball, and maybe they don't fit at the position that they originally intended to come in and play at, or where their coaches thought they could be at, but they realized, okay, yeah, they can play this other position pretty well. We just need to change our, shift them into the training for that from a sports skill standpoint. To be honest with, in conversations with you, there's some of these opportunities out there that I wasn't aware of and didn't know that this feeder system was so extensive into these other areas of sports and Olympic programs.
Yeah.
So I had always, partly because of our work with Kerry Jones, who was here and was a track athlete that turned into a bobsledder. I've always had my eye on individuals that I thought could fit the mold for that sport.
Yeah.
And we have a few, that have come across the years, and you try to sell it to them a little bit. And some student athletes they're understanding that, when my career in XYZ sport is done here, like, I'm good, I'm done. I'm ready to go out and be a regular person and whatnot. But then there are some that have a pretty strong fire and desire to continue to compete and don't want to leave any stone unturned on that. So it's exciting to hear that there's opportunities for that in other avenues of sport for some athletes here that could potentially fit into that.
Do you have any transfer talent or examples that you could think of athletes that you trained that went on to go do something different or something excited that might not have come to mind initially?
Yeah, so Kerry would be the first example, and that just happened by a conversation with Alana Myers-Taylor, who's a pilot for the U.S. bobsled team.
Yeah.
I happened to be at an Altus apprentice coach program course back in probably like 2013 or 2014, and she was there training at the time.
Oh, wow.
And her husband was on the staff, and so we were talking a bit. And she sends out emails every once in a while to coaches looking for people that could potentially fit.
Oh, she's recruiting too.
And so she's recruiting.
Yeah.
And so that's how I thought maybe Kerry might fit into that, as far as like her speed and power capabilities and her body type. And she probably, I don't know if she'll be mad at me as saying this, but she probably wasn't quite fast enough to really have a professional career in track that wasn't going to cost her a lot of money to do.
It's a pretty tight-knit in terms of how elite your performance has to be.
So I asked her if that was something she'd be interested in, and she thought it was a pretty cool opportunity, and then ended up, after her senior season was done, continued to train for combine and tryouts and everything for that. And we have a young lady, Bailey Humphrey, who was on the acrobatics and tumbling team, graduated last year, and who's done a number of things within WWE so far. Coming out, she had opportunities in rugby, I believe, as well, and chose the WWE route. So, and I believe I didn't work with him very much directly, but Trevor White was an athlete here, played football, was a wide receiver. This would have been, I'm not sure, 100% sure when he got done, but he ended up matriculating into NASCAR, so he's on a pit crew there. So it's a pretty neat opportunity there as well.
Yeah, that's another lens, and the pit crew, they're starting to have agents. That's starting to become its whole built out kind of professional sector as well. How do you feel just with we talked a little bit about football, basketball, kind of the all sports, kind of Olympic sports within kind of a program. What do you think the future is of helping to continue steward athletes from all different types of sporting backgrounds into the next level, however that's perceived?
Yeah, I think this is a great step for that. Knowing that we do have a pretty large talent pool in the United States, so it's just a matter of identifying and finding people that have the physical and mental qualities to do that, and then number two, want to do it and are passionate about it. There's tons of athletes all over the country that can do sports that maybe they haven't even heard of.
Sure.
But the skills required in those sports are similar or in the same ballpark as the sport they currently play. So I think it's an exciting avenue to see how this evolves, and not everybody's going to get to go pro in the sport that they chose to play, and and in some sports there's not really professional opportunities. So most people that end up in athletics at the collegiate level have a pretty strong desire for sport, and the reality is not many people get to decide when it's done for them.
Yeah.
It's decided for them, and if this allows them an opportunity to have a little bit more say so in that, I think it's a great thing.
No, yeah, and I think there'll only be more and more opportunities. We're seeing emerging professional volleyball leagues, National Rugby League is kind of an emerging. I know you alluded to that, as well as we're even seeing acrobatics and tumbling. We help recruit for aerial skiing. And so the ability to transition in a number of different ways. To go back real quick on like the hyper specialization, and because I'm curious about the role of a strength conditioning coach. How much are they integrated in the youth sector? You get to college and it's extremely professional. There's a lot of integration, but as you get to a little bit more of the club style, do you think that there's a help or a touch from the strength and conditioning world that can help right the ship a little bit in the youth?
Yeah, I think so, and it depends on the sport, because I think if you go into the soccer academies and stuff like that, they certainly have a dedicated performance staff that's
Sure.
working with their youth teams and everything like that. So that's a good start in the right direction. I'm a parent,
Yeah.
and we all have hopes and dreams for our children, and thankfully for me, because of what I've been involved in, I have a very realistic expectation of what opportunities are out there and what's possible and everything like that. I think there's a lot of times that there's a lot of money involved in it. So there's people that are making money off youth programs and everything like that. Again, which is fine. There's wonderful people out there that are doing it for the right reasons and working to help the kids and everything like that. But now I think when you start talking about high school athletes, they may be playing one sport for their high school and they may be playing club on the weekends. And then now who's the gatekeeper and managing all that?
Yeah.
And how well is everybody communicating together? And there's people that are in our field that do a really good job of reaching out to whoever their club coach may be and understanding like what's going on and how they can best fit in and do the right thing for the athlete. We need more of that than as much of that as we can get, because of how much they are playing and getting exposed to that singular sport. But I think our profession in general has a pretty strong desire to help things. It's just there's a lot of competing interests from people that are making money off it, parents, all those types of things. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
And at the center of it is the athlete. I guess the last thing, really that I would be thinking about is, again, whether it's athletes competing to find future opportunities or coming in, if you could have a level setting conversation with a lot of what you're seeing, what would that look like with an athlete just directly, getting all of the cooks out of the kitchen, just a person to person, human to human? What do you think creates the right frame of mind to really reach athletic success?
Well, I think at the youth level and even part of the way through high school and every sport's going to be a little bit different. There are some that are going to need to specialize a little bit earlier to be able to create and be available for opportunities. But I think especially when you're talking at the junior high level and below, and maybe even in the first year or so of high school, you want to think about minoring in everything and majoring in nothing. If I told you that I wanted my daughter to take math classes and nothing else, you would think I was crazy for that. We would never do that to a child, but we do it with athletics. And, and they need robust, well-rounded skill development. We need PE programs to be important again and have that taken seriously. We need kids to go out and play. But it's easier said than done. So I don't know what the answer is to finding that, but I would first, think we need to think about what does that athlete want to do? Sure. Because there certainly is a lot of burnout too with young people as they go through this specialization model where they're playing all the time, and when they're young, it needs to be fun. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. Sure. Probably the most important thing that a parent can do is find something that athlete's able, whatever sport it may be, but they're able to do it with their friends, and they're going to enjoy it. They may not look like a pro right away,
Sure.
but it's going to keep them coming back. It's going to give them enjoyable experiences of the sport where they'll learn to love the sport and want to go back to it. If we continue to force it and they don't really want that, eventually they're gonna not be in it anymore. So I think we need to be mindful of, what does that young person want out of this
Well, and I
deal?
think it is interesting because, like back to like my personal college days, and I think a lot of college athletes, right? You go and you commit, you get recruited by your position coach, you come into the football program, but then you are absolutely developed and you're building relationships a lot with the strength and conditioning staff, and I think, people have maybe their own trainers or their own skill specific, but I think to me, it kind of goes back to the resilience mindset that you have, is being anti-fragile, not, fragile in the physical sense, but then also, a lot of sports is overcoming adversity. And so how can that be better integrated, and at least given that frame of mind to an athlete? Because from my experience talking to a lot of these young athletes, they're not even exposed to that type of dynamic or environment to even understand any of the benefit.
I think they maybe are a lot of times being set up or put in positions where they're always going to be successful.
Sure.
Even when they're young, and that's, like you said, you don't learn good lessons from that.
No.
You have to be, any athlete that's truly great at their sport has had to go through some fire and go through some adversity and some pain and turmoil within their sport, and that's just talking about the sport itself.
Or even like you said, other sports, right? Where maybe you're the star football player, but you're a backup basketball player. But again, that's a different role. That's a different, environment.
You learn how to be a great teammate in a different setting, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I think I wish we could have more of that be created, and not to say that specialization itself is completely wrong. Like I said, there is a tool for it. I mean, our athletes here are specialized, so it's just finding the right window when it's appropriate to do that. I think unfortunately in the United States, we've done it way too young, and we need to find a way to teach life skills through sport. That's the beauty of sport, is that there's things that are going to be hard. There's things that aren't going to go your way, and you've got to find a way to adapt and overcome those circumstances to get a result, or be there for your teammate, or do the job so your team can be successful. And as you know, employers look for that.
Oh yeah.
They love having athletes come in and work for them because they know they can work in a team. They can submit their own desires or wants for the greater good of the team.
Sure.
They're committed. They're disciplined. They're used to being they're used to going through a regiment of training and class and study hall and all these things to be able to perform at a high level and succeed academically and athletically while they're in college. So it's really important. We got to make sure we keep that going.
No, I mean, I think building champions for life. I mean, I think that is the motto. For us, our mission is connecting athletes to opportunities and using sports as that vehicle for opportunities. Obviously, in life broadly, it's fun to be here to take that next steps of more professional, more diverse sporting opportunities. But at the end of the day, that's what sports is, right? Is a tool for development. So again, appreciate you helping us give this platform to help these athletes get opportunities. But then to me, I think it's also to just drive that ethos back into the sport environment. And luckily, we're getting more into youth, and I think there will be trending away from hyper-specialization, hopefully over the long term. But to me, that is the essence of sports. So appreciate you for helping us capture that.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to it.